Near Central California, there's an old mining community that you've probably heard of called the Mother Lode. It's an area of California that was a large part of the gold rush. That is where this story takes place. On the way out of town, down a long road, almost like a stretch of highway, you suddenly veer off to the right and go down a rough, older road less than a quarter mile down. The road dead ends into a circle parking area with a gate at the end, which is kept locked by the city. If you were to go past the gate, you will end up at a popular lake in my area. When you park at the end, you are basically surrounded on one side by steep hills dotted with poison oak and tall pine and oak trees. The other side is a steep downhill slope to the lake. So basically, you are in a bowl. We were told if we were to go up to the left of the steep hill, that there would be an old mine, long abandoned by the miners that the county didn't close. About 250 feet up the steep hill, we found the old mine, almost hidden in a slight divot in the hillside that you wouldn't see unless you walked right up on it. To get into the mine, you had to climb down a slight slope into the ground and go over some medium-sized rocks on the ground, leftovers from when they blasted into the mountain. The mine itself was about 7 feet tall and 6 feet wide, which formed a tunnel that was about 250 feet into the mountain. The mine had rough rock walls with a colorful vein running along the left wall. This vein is said to indicate the presence of gold by its ribbons of color. The tunnels followed along that vein, taking at least 2 turns with a couple of short dead-ended offshoots. As you got deeper into the mine, you had to step carefully to avoid mud, which is what the old ore cart tracks were handy for. Ore carts hauled blasted rocks out of the mine on like mini railroad tracks. Once you're inside the mine, it was completely and utterly dark and silent, except for the sounds of the wind howling and dripping water. We took our time walking into the dark tunnel until we eventually reached the tunnel's end, a wall of solid rock. Disappointed, we started on the way back to the entrance. My buddy decided to stop near the entrance to chip some sample rock from the vein in the wall. He promised to be quick, so I just stood and waited for him. I maybe stood there for a couple of minutes before I heard the first strange sound. It sounded like a small pile of rocks toppling over, echoing up the shaft towards us. I tried to tell my buddy what I just heard, but he didn't hear me. So I just let it go. Not even 2 minutes later, I heard it again. That time closer. That time I got his attention to tell him what I just heard. But he just thought I was being paranoid. He said, "You're just hearing an echo from me." I tried to take his word for it, but again, not even 2 minutes later, there it was again. That time the sound came with a feeling of panic and fear. That was when I literally just said, "You only have to be faster than your slowest friend." Then I just took off running, over the rocks and out of the mine. When he came out a few minutes later, he said he walked back to the end and didn't see any fallen rocks. I didn't go back there until a few years later with another buddy of mine. Same as before, up the steep hill we went. The mine looked exactly as it did before, front to back, with no signs of a cave-in, just as my other buddy had done before. My other buddy just had to stop on the way out to chip away at the damn vine, winding along the left wall. As I was standing there waiting, I heard another strange, scary sound, but that time, it sounded like a rattle, and we both heard it. The only way we could describe it was it sounded just like a baby rattle. We both froze and looked at each other, puzzled and anxious, illuminated in each other's headlamps. Not even a couple minutes later, we both heard it again. The sound of a baby rattle. We both grew up here, so we knew it wasn't a rattlesnake or anything, which are common here. When we heard it the third time, the creepy feeling came right back to me, and I just ran out of there as fast as I could, practically tripping on the rocks on the way out. I haven't gone back since. I can't describe it. Something about that old mine just came with a bad, scary feeling, and both people that went there with me felt it as well. Okay, so this isn't an apartment I just moved into. I moved in around July 2020 and had no ghost or paranormal encounters until just starting yesterday. So yesterday around 1 in the morning, I hear sudden movements coming from the master bedroom of the house, which is at the complete opposite side of my kitchen. It wasn't really loud, but loud enough to hear it. It sounded like some kind of bags being touched. I first ignored it and went back to my room. At 5 a.m., I leave my room to go to the restroom until I hear the same bag noise again, but this time very loud. Everyone was asleep and my parents were already at work since 3 a.m. I get nervous and quickly go back to my room. Then this afternoon when I woke up, I heard some kind of door opening, which then I found out was my bathroom door right next to my bedroom. Am I being haunted by a ghost right now? And why all of a sudden now? Clarification. There are no intruders or any person living in my apartment. There isn't really a place to hide for the squatters anyways. Maybe the storage room, but it's full of crap with a zero space. And also I already checked and no one was in there. I had been asking to see a spirit for weeks, and one night I looked to my left and saw a pitch black figure with sharp teeth and white glowing circular eyes and small black pupils staring at me. I knew it was real. I stopped smiling after a while. Then in a blink, it disappeared. I saw it a few times actually. One time I was in the game room, which is an open space, but has all the halls, and in the corner of my eye is my old room. I saw the same figure, which is about 2 feet tall, run past my couch, and I also saw 2 figure human-like shadows in front of my old bedroom where I saw that creature. I also sometimes, when in my room, it's pitch black. Around where my feet are, I feel something sit on my bed and from the corner of my room watching me. Another time, I had a dream about the same room I saw that creature in, of an invisible figure throwing things around and making noises. I used to also have a doll, and I would have dreams about her being evil and watching me, so I got rid of it. If you can share your thoughts as to what type of creatures these may be, and why they don't leave me alone, please let me know. Well, hello there, people. I just got up from a nap. Why? Because as I was drifting in and out of consciousness, having the usual inner monologue on remembering something off, I was half asleep, and I can't quite remember, when I hear, to my left ear, a noisy laugh going, hee hee hee, somewhat monotone, as in a laugh that is not laughing. As I was hearing that half asleep, this thing actually shocked me. Yes, I woke up in a panic as a jolt of electricity struck me. My heart beating, everything hurting, and I couldn't move. Sleep paralysis, or something, while this thing keeps making that noise. I was afraid. Then I remembered not to fear, and then I tried to look at the thing. Now I was getting angry like a person who had just had fallen to a bad prank. P.S. I was alone in my room with the door closed. These kinds of things have been happening a while, and it takes many manners of supernatural, such as ghost entities in my dreams, etc. But I think whatever it is actually making fun of me, and well, this time I was listening earlier to X in Spanish, and specifically one of the stories, a thing that got repeated was a phrase. It was a laugh. It wasn't a laugh. Several times as the author was trying to cope with retelling the traumatic experience within a cabin in the woods. This thing heard the story with me and just played a laugh that I can tell was not a laugh. What do you think this thing is, people? I can try to recall more of these pranks, but I personally do not think I'd get any response. But I wanted to share when it was still fresh and it still hurts a bit. Second thing happened on Christmas. I decided to stay at home with my pupper, and something manifested onto a particular room of the house. I thought we had an intruder since this room does lead outside, and the door opened itself by the time the fireworks began. I held the door while the dog stayed nearby. Eventually I overcame that feeling of dread and opened the door to find the room empty.
This experience took place from 2003 to 2007, and because I was born in 1998, you should be able to understand that I'll do my best to give you a full in-depth recollection of the ghost. The only people I will mention that should appear in the story are my mother and my brother, who in the beginning is not yet born. He was born in 2004, so initially it was only my mother and I. A long time ago in my hometown, my mother and I moved into a duplex, where the landlord lived upstairs while we lived downstairs. This house, as I remember, it was older, but must have been remodeled, because it looked very 2000s, and not from the late 19th century. We had a front porch and a decent-sized backyard with a fireplace in the center of it, about as big as a yard as you can get in urban in the middle of our street home. Now for the layout of this duplex. I wasn't there when the moving in furniture took place. I actually hung out with my aunt and my guardian. But the moment I stepped into our new home, I was excited. Excited to get on my CTR TV, in all honesty. But anyways, when you first walk into the house, you'll find that our dining room table is directly to the right of the front door. Looking forward was the living room. The CTR TV sat on the floor like those models usually could. The couch to the left wall, farther back from the front door to the other side of the duplex, was the slide door to the backyard, and to the left of that door, the computer and desk against the left wall. Behind the couch was like some kind of counter. The wall was cut out to give a view of the kitchen. To the right of that, the actual entrance to the kitchen. The kitchen was how you got into the two-bedroom closet and bedroom. In fact, all those rooms were connected. My bedroom and my mom's bedroom had no doors, so we could always see what each other were doing. I had the closet that had the door to the bathroom having a closest door and a kitchen door. I do remember how everything was laid out, but let me not bore you too hard. 2003. Finally to the thing you're waiting for. The second thing I did after settling down into my new home was look out to the sliding door to the backyard. Almost instinctively, this experience introduces you to her. I don't have a name for her. She, the spirit, never said her name, nor do I remember what the history of the duplex said online. I thought nothing of the girl I saw staring down at the fireplace, and I remembered what she was wearing and looked like to this day. I don't remember her face, only her scar. That I'll reveal to you soon. She didn't turn around, so at this time I've never actually seen her face, as she stared down at the fireplace unmoving, the sun reflecting off her gorgeous golden blonde hair, and she was wearing some kind of white dress. To be honest, that feels like a common thing for female spirits and dresses, doesn't it? The dress was gently being brushed by the wind, and it was the afternoon. The sun was high in the sky at this time, and yet there she was, Little did 5 or 6-year-old me realize that she wasn't actually alive or there. Little did I realize, but soon learn, she was more than what she seemed. I think I asked my mother who she was. My mom would always ask me who I was talking about. She couldn't see her, yet I could. Every day she would be there by the fireplace in the same position, all morning staring at this fireplace. I never thought of approaching her for some reason, but I have been in the backyard plenty of times. But whenever I did go back there, she wasn't there. This next bit, I'm not sure if it was before my brother was born or after, but because I actually have no memory of my brother during this moment, it had to have been before. One day I was sitting at home by myself in the living room. It was the weekend, and my mom was working, so I decided to make a bowl of cereal, and almost turned to the TV when suddenly out of nowhere, my soul is startled by the sound of a very, very loud robot voice that spoke an entire sentence. My thoughts were everywhere, scrambling to try to understand what I'd heard. Our landlord was quiet, pretty much never home, so I knew it couldn't have been from upstairs. I merely remember that this great and powerful voice was all around me. Maybe it was in my head. I'm actually not sure. But she randomly entered into my thoughts. I somehow felt that her and that one timber voice were connected. I would never hear the deep electronic voice ever again. 2004 is when things started to become increasingly real. 2004, this is the year my brother was born in October, so I have a few things I can recollect that I know for sure happened in this year. I feel that the activity increased throughout the years, but by the time we moved out, she could do anything and has done a lot. 2004, what a year of nostalgia for me. I was as much of a gamer then as I am now at 23 years old. Although back then I would actually watch TV. My favorite show was, funny enough, Ghost Hunters. Today I don't really like or think that the show is real, but back then I did. And she, my friendly ghost with no name, would put fuel into that fire. There was this one day, sun out and all, where my mom was sitting in the living room. I could in fact see her head over the counter. I pulled out my back then childhood board game, Sorry, and said out loud, setting up in the middle of the kitchen floor, "Who wants to play a board game with me?" I'm not sure why I used who, rather than do you, when the only person there was my mother. She was talking about her seeing a job with someone on their phone, so she wasn't listening to me. However, a voice of a young girl said something to the left side of me. To the left of me was a refrigerator, and to the front of the refrigerator was the entrance to my mom's bedroom. The voice said in a playful voice, "I do." I was fascinated and not frightened at the same time for some reason. To hear a voice coming from nowhere and pushing it off as a normal thing, might I add. "Okay," I said. "You go first." I pulled the card out for the voice, and I watched and I waited. The card was an 8, and I gave the spirit the green pieces while I was read. Of course, much to my disappointment, the green pieces didn't move at all. They had to be moved by me. And I ended up playing an entire game of Sorry by myself. Feeling a very cold air around me again, I thought absolutely nothing of it. My mom eventually got up from the couch and went to the fridge to get something from it. That's when the cold air dissipated. I don't remember if my mom and I were conversed, but eventually that night, things would change forever in that apartment. Night came and I was sleeping soundly well into my dream world. I could say that this memory was actually very foggy, so I'm going to do my best to make sense of the conclusion of it. My dream was very abnormal. Everything around me was fogged like the old Silent Hill video games, hiding the surroundings in a creepy, emoted void. I was in my bed in my dream, and she, the blonde girl, was sitting in that gray void next to the bed. Her face was blurry as hell, but I knew something was wrong with it. Her hair was parted, and I don't actually think she had eyes. She was pale and looked like she sat in a fire. Her skin was covered in burns, and she was sitting on her legs with a very friendly smile across her lips. "Hi, would you like me to read you a story?" she asked me, and then immediately began reading to me something from Mother Goose. She never gave me a chance to respond to her question. The entire dream went on like this. Her voice faded out slowly before I knew it, and I would be awakened again by the following morning. Apparently I was sleeping. I got up out of bed and asked my mother about her. I described the girl to my mom and everything, yet I remember none of that. I was sleepwalking, both dreaming of the girl reading a book to me, while my body got up to tell my mother about the ghost. My brother brought it up to me eventually, and for some reason I was confused as to what she was talking about. It was almost as if I completely forgot about the ghost girl. The next incident is a representative nuisance. Anytime my mom and I would return home, the living room TV remote would be laying face down on the carpet center of the room, and the back cover missing, and the double-A batteries hidden in two places. We'd have to find them every single time. I wonder what my mother thought of all this. I can only tell you in depth my brother and myself. I think my mom must have been trying to sense the remote situations. Maybe she blamed it on me. Maybe she had incidences that I don't know about, and didn't want to scare me. The remote game, as I called it, carried on for months. It would finally stop once my brother was born. This is when things got real. I would have urges of jealousy or eagerness. I'd bring a butter knife in my hand to try to suffocate my brother. And I loved the kid so much I can't explain why I would make such a violent attempt. I would stop myself before I did anything. I don't actually remember grabbing the knife ever, in fact. My brother was never harmed, but the spirit girl had plans for him. For a while, the house was quiet. Time passes, and I don't recall any more instances of 2004 to 2005. I can basically sort out these memories through the video games I played. This year was when Star Wars Battlefront 2 released. I thought I was playing quite a lot of Star Wars Bounty Hunter and Destroy All Humans. My brother, who I will for the sake of naming him, is called Austin. He was becoming talkative, still in the crib at this time of the next incident. This incident consisted of a second dream that signaled the return of her. She was not absent since the last incident I described. This time she was going to be moving things and people while you were there. To see it in your peripherals. She would talk a lot more, but I could no longer see her in 2005. In fact, she ditched me for my brother to become his imaginary friend. The first incident of 2005, she appeared in my dreams and read me The Itsy Bitsy Spider, but my brother was there next to me. My bed was outside of the backyard, and she was sitting in the middle of the fireplace reading to both of us. The second incident, her powers. I was sitting in my bed, pitch black, in my mom's room, which I'm able to see from my bed and my brother's crib around the corner, just over the other side of the wall in my bed. I'm sitting there trying to sleep when all of a sudden I hear footsteps from the kitchen to my brother's crib. I watch, fixing my eyes and adjusting them to the dark. There was absolutely no one there. Then I heard something dragging and a thud. Out came my already walking brother, who had no way of getting out of the crib. It was too high for him to do so. He walked up to me, not creeped out at all, compared to me, speaking gibberish, and I went to tell my mom that Austin got out of his crib somehow. She told me to get back in bed and she'll take care of him. Creeped out, I remained in bed and stared at my ceiling for a while. I made friends with my next door neighbor in 2005. His name was Isaiah, but he never really experienced any of these instances with me. If he has, I don't know about it. I only mention him to bring up that his house sitting is to the right of my home. I was social for a time and being quite the daredevil. At night was when the spirit would do things in front of me. One in particular was my brother and that little jumper thing, babysitting to walk around. Note that somehow he had walked to my side of the bed at night. Yet he can't really walk like that. He was bouncing around and beating up all the spinning circles, pressing buttons and dancing to the audio music. When suddenly, I noticed he gets real quiet. I was playing Pac-Man World 2 in my mom's bedroom when he was in the kitchen. So right outside the doorway, he was staring at about my height, but nowhere in my direction. He was looking to the small open space to the left of the refrigerator and talking. Austin was laughing and talking gibberish to someone that he thought was there. Mom noticed this too, and we're like, Austin? Who are you talking to? He would do this for a while. He actually got out of his crib one more time eventually this year, but I'm not sure when it was. But I do remember carrying him and barely being able to lift him over the side of the crib and back into it. I have one more thing from 2005, and honestly, I think this is the coolest incident I have with the spirit. It was the nighttime and I was playing Star Wars Bounty Hunter, and my mom's bed had a little lamp on the left side of it. Out of my peripherals, I saw the corner of her bed blanket lift up in the air and drop back down. When I attempted to directly look at what was in the blaze of what was going on, again, I was thrilled rather than chilled. If it were to guess what was the ghost girl doing, She was probably laying on my mom's bed to watch my brother in his crib. At this point, I no longer hear or see her, so I can only guess that where she's standing is based off my peripheral sightings and what my brother was up to. My brother was sleeping when this happened. 2006. There's not much more that I can remember of this year, but I could ask my brother if his experiences eventually. I remember at least two things. One of them was how I was having emotions that were not my own. I'd be struck in trances. There is no known order of events for this year. The closet that connects my bedroom to the bedroom was a point of interest this year for me. Something always told me that whenever my nose bled, or if I bled anywhere at all, to wipe it all over the walls of the closet. At night, I felt like someone was watching me from the keyhole. One day, I suddenly felt so depressed and aimless that I took a stool and started to oven the clock for 5 hours straight. Neither Mom or Austin was home, so I was left there uninterrupted. My thoughts were creepy. I was remembering a fire, yet I've never experienced a fire as big as I was imagining. 2007. Austin is talking great by now. I begin hearing laughter and footsteps in my mom's bedroom, and Austin would sleep in the same bed as Mom. The crib was removed at this point, and the TV in the bedroom area was moved at least 3 times. That TV was new at this time, yet there was a day where I began playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 2003. The TV was sitting on the floor next to Mom's bed, and I sat right next in front of it. The TV turned itself off. I heard the button click and everything, so I turned the TV back on. I continued to play the game, and the TV does the same thing. It turns off, and the sound of the button of the TV being pressed can be heard. I sat there and I grumbled. I turned the TV on again, and I sat there and I watched the power button of the TV, waiting for it to turn off again. Sure thing. I see the button being pushed into the TV, and the loud sound click of the old CRT TV buttons had, and the static of the TV screen dissolving. I've never left a bedroom so fast. The TV remote throughout this year would be thrown around, and I was able to see the ghost girl again. Austin and I both saw her staring at the backyard fireplace. One night we had people over and had a bonfire, and I remember seeing the spirit hovering in a tree branch above us, staring at the fire. Do you remember when I said that she looked like she was burned alive in that dream a few years back? Her dress was now dirty, and her face was not blurry anymore. I could just make out a facial feature. Eventually my mom would look up the history of the apartment. At some point in the 1900s, the duplex was set on fire, and this girl my brother and I always saw was caught in the middle of it. She passed away in either the bedrooms or living room. My friend next door and I started to not get along, and before any of these got worse, Mom and my brother and I moved out. The day came when we'd see that house for one last time. Mom pulled out the driveway, and us and I were in the back seat. On our porch, I saw her again. She had her hand on the railing, watching us drive off. I asked my mom, "Is she coming with us?" My mom, scared by my question, responded with, "Hell no, she isn't," and sped away. 2 years later, my friend's house would mysteriously be set on fire from the side of their house facing our duplex. My friend's house was completely destroyed. I believe the duplex is still there to this day. In fact, I'm going to Google Maps it in a minute. To experience such a paranormal activity made me believe that life has to have a lot more secrets that many the eye can't meet nor the mind able to explain. We know very little about our world, and spirits like this girl are the many reasons why you should keep your mind open. Hope you enjoyed reading this. Update. I discovered a few things yesterday searching for this house. I found it by looking in the general neighborhood. I knew that a liquor store was somewhere nearby. Turns out that a few years ago, the entire street was torn down for a factory to have space. However, Google Maps Street View still shows the duplex, and the rebuilt house next to it. The satellite view of the duplex is outdated because the house next to it still has a big plain area, where the house once was. In reality, nothing is on that street anymore. It's a shame. I asked my brother if he remembered anything. Understandably, I have to remember that this is how he spent his first 3 years of his life, and he said he kind of remembers something, but not really at all. I then asked my mother about the girl and how the house next to it caught on fire. She told me that the girl actually drowned. I remember looking like she was burnt to death. What if she was covered in soil? Time fogs details. Please excuse my poor grammar, as English is my first language. So when my family built this house in the early 70s, it was all perfect. But then my great-granddad died. Nothing much happened. When I was a kid, I had a small room that always felt watched while I was in there. One night, I even felt something sitting on the bed. I was too scared to look at this person, so I just stared at my wall until I fell asleep again. This was when I was 5 or 6. After I moved into another room, nothing similar ever happened in that room. And then, but recently, things started to happen. Objects started to disappear, and I would find them in various places. I would see shadow people and figures. A few weeks ago, my mom and I had a strange and chilling experience. She came home from work and was on the first floor. I was on the second floor and heard yelling, "I'm home!" When I went in to go open the door in the staircase, I heard a feminine scream. As if someone would be in pain. I ran downstairs because I thought my mom was hurt. But when I saw her and she said, "You didn't just scream, did you?" I shook my head in fear. She told me she heard it from upstairs, but I heard it from downstairs. A few days later, I talked to my sister about paranormal stuff happening in our house. Turns out, we both hear the steps that sometimes are in the attic. We thought it might be a raccoon at first, but then we listened to it again. It was masculine steps. It sounded like military boots. Since we talked about it as a family, it got worse. I woke up a few days ago with the feeling of someone choking me. I always dreamt about death every night. I feel watched every step I take. I honestly don't know what to do anymore. We already had a priest come here. We staged the whole house correctly. I'm thinking about just moving out with my sister and my mom.
Hi everybody, it's curiousraven. As I'm sitting here in my bedroom recording these for you lovely, lovely people, I keep hearing things. I know I've talked to other narrators who also hear things in their mics, something kind of like a bump in the night. But it's broad daylight outside, it's not even 12 p.m. and I swear it sounds like someone is walking in the living room right now. But I know no one's there, it's only me home right now. But I just wanted to tell y'all that me personally, I get a lot of stuff in my mic that kind of creeps me out. I'll hear little knocks and creaks and falls and just creepy. Thank you so much for my really good friend and narrator, GenSen. Y'all should go and subscribe to his channel. He is amazing. GenSen helped me out a whole bunch when I first started, and I cannot thank him more than enough. So thank you, GenSen. I love y'all very much, and remember, it's scary out there.